help you, your business, and your workers affected, you can apply for cash grants, business rate holidays, statutory sick pay relief packages, as well as the coronavirus job retention and self-employment income support schemes. For information, go to gov.uk/business-support now.
At Wix, we put customer safety at the heart of everything we do. But right now, that doesn't just mean goggles, steel toe caps, and yellow helmets. It means 2-meter distances, paying by card, and safety screens at checkouts. So whether you want to shop with us in-store, click and collect, or have your order delivered to your home, let's do it right safely. Wix.
I've used my ample time indoors to hunt down my odd socks. I found one down the sofa, one in the bread bin, and one in a serious relationship with my cat. But there are better ways to spend your time. That's why Money Supermarket is helping you find cheaper insurance, better interest rates, and easier ways to manage your bills. You can find many more small steps towards money calm at Money Supermarket.
You love TuneIn for live-breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Looking to freshen up your listening on TuneIn? Head to the homepage to discover something new. There you'll see custom recommendations based on your listening habits, along with new episodes of shows you've enjoyed in the past. Uncover your next audio obsession on the homepage.
Want to relive the glory of college football?
Balls over a man, into the end zone.
Come explore TuneIn's classic game replay collection to hear ESPN's complete coverage of the 2019 New Year's 6 bowl games. Don't miss your chance to re-experience the Rose Bowl, the 2020 National Championship, featuring Clemson and LSU.
There's going to be 2 champions on the field tomorrow night. There's going to be 1 team hold up the trophy.
10, race to the 5, touchdown! Search classic game replays to listen for free.
Wanna bet football can make you feel nostalgic?
Playing days are over, so...
On the podcast, NFL Alumni Lounge, Charlie Booth sits down with retired NFL legends to talk about their careers, life after football, and everything in between.
Mr. Darren Waller, good to have you.
Yes, sir, it's good to be here.
Dana White, welcome to the Alumni Lounge.
Thanks for having me, brother.
Big member of our NFL alumni family, the CEO of the XFL, Mr. Oliver Luck.
Charlie, good to see you. Thanks for having me.
We're here with the president, Mr. Eric Price. Good to see you.
Search NFL Alumni Lounge on TuneIn to listen.
The Mina Kimes Show podcast.
Kevin Clark.
If Josh Allen became the 10th best quarterback in football this year, they'd probably win 14 games. Am I wrong about that?
No. If you as a quarterback can't win in the Bills' situation right now, they should not extend you. So many teams, Jets, do not have the information they need to evaluate their quarterbacks based on the teams they've built around. The Bills do.
Listen and subscribe to the Mina Kimes Show podcast.
Search the Mina Kimes Show to listen.
Keep up with everything happening in the wild world of pro wrestling with a podcast on TuneIn. For expert analysis straight from the WWE to Steve Austin's no-holds-barred conversations with wrestling's biggest personalities, search sports and scroll down to the world of wrestling to listen.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Markets.
Coming up, U.S. equity markets seem to be shrugging off each tension as it comes. We'll talk about why that is. Plus, we speak with Clint Watts, Distinguished Research Fellow at the Foreign Policy Research Institute and a former FBI agent. Right now, though, let's head over to Greg Jarrett for a Bloomberg Business Flash. Greg.
Stocks have been edging higher, Lisa, as investors focus on signs of economic recovery amid further tension with China, lackluster virus drug test results, and the threat of further civil unrest here in the USA. The Treasury yields have edged higher and the dollar is slumping. We look at the numbers every 15 minutes throughout the trading day. S&P 500 is now up 0.2% up 6. The Dow's up 0.2% up 55, and the Nasdaq's up 0.4% up 37. The 10-year's down 9/30 seconds with a yield of 0.68%. West Texas Intermediate crude's down 1.3% to 35.02 a barrel, while COMEX gold's down 0.4% at 17.4530 an ounce. The dollar yen 107.63. The euro's $1.11.29, and the British pound $1.24.71. Credit markets are so hot right now, they're luring companies out of hibernation to get in on a piece of the action. Amazon.com and Ralph Lauren are kickstarting the calendar today. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jerry.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
It's 10:33 on Wall Street. Time for Bloomberg Opinion. Today we're joined by Bloomberg Opinion columnist John Authers. He's the senior editor for Bloomberg Markets. John, thanks so much for joining us here. You know, Lisa and I have been talking about, the resiliency of this equity market after that, substantial 34% sell-off when the pandemic really gripped the markets here. And that has only extended here over the last several days with all the civil unrest we've seen across the United States. What is your sense of kind of how the market looks at some of these external events, whether it's, that police murder in or the killing of that gentleman in Minneapolis to the issues we've seen in cities across the country?
Well, I tried looking at because I would totally agree with you after the weekend of horrific images we all spent viewing. It is quite remarkable that the stock market is actually up on the Monday after all of that. But the closest comparisons I could think to what we've just lived through, the Ferguson riots in 2014, you saw the stock market actually gain during those disturbances and for a few days afterwards. Similarly, after London really and most of the other big cities in Britain really did collapse into disorder and looting for a week in July and August of 2011 after the killing by police of a black man. Again, the stock market actually rose during that period, and the Rodney King riots in Los Angeles in '92. Similarly, there was no negative effect at all. And then if you really go back a very long way, the obvious comparison to what we're living through here in the States now is 1968, the year of the assassinations of Dr. King and Bobby Kennedy, and the stock market was up for 1968, in large part because Richard Nixon ended up being president. My best guess, obviously there's some kind of an ingrained belief that stock markets don't need to worry about urban unrest, which obviously could be a little like the comparisons that people were making to MERS and SARS and Ebola a few months ago. You can ignore pandemics until you can't. There's always a risk that you can ignore urban unrest until you can't. But there is also, I think, an ingrained belief that scenes like this, horrific images across TV of what's been going, the kind that we've seen, ultimately probably help people on the conservative side of politics, which will encourage the stock market.
And John, perhaps that's part of the calculus. I do think, though, if you take a step back and try to look at the host of issues that are confronting U.S. equities right now, yes, it's the social unrest, the protests that I will say that I saw out my window that were mostly peaceful with a lot of people showing restraint on all sides and a number of bad actors, but again, mostly peaceful, that did spiral out of control. But then you also have the rising U.S.-China tensions that are also seemingly back on the table with a question of whether the Phase 1 trade deal is dead in the water heading into later this year. The market shrugs it all off. It seems to be pricing in that fiscal and monetary policy will overcome whatever ill gets thrown at. I'm struggling to understand the conviction there at a time when people have I can't get one person with a conviction as to what's going to happen for the next 6 months, let alone a year, and how that translates to the economy. Where are people getting this conviction from?
Well, I first of all, I can't disagree with anything you just said, Lisa. It's just you could see some kind of a rebound coming from the lows while we waited to see exactly how the pandemic played out. the extent of the rebound, given the amount of new bad news we've had, is very, very surprising and quite alarming. I guess there is ultimately, I'm not going to be any more imaginative than to talk about the Fed. I mean, if you want a really long perspective on this, you could argue that the Fed is pretty much already resorting to financial repression, a la what we saw in the after the war in the 40s, to keep the yield, or it's not just yield curve control. There's basically certain points of the curve are completely becalmed for the last 2 months, while other markets have gone ballistic. That, I guess, gives you a sense that if the Fed is available to try to maintain financial repression for 5, 6, 7 years, or however long it will take, that will do it. And in the meantime, the math therefore favors going into stocks. Yeah. I think that's a dangerous calculation, which I gather you do as well. That's my best.
I'll be honest, John, I'll be honest, I have no idea. And honestly, you speak to the medical experts, just full disclosure, I have no concept. I mean, I speak to the medical experts, they throw their hands up and say, we don't understand this. We cannot game out how this is going to progress. We don't know when the vaccine's going to come. And then you talk to investment strategists, they're much more sanguine and confident. John Authors, I would love to continue this conversation. Unfortunately, we have to leave it there. But just to clarify the issue, I don't know the outcome. I don't know whether stocks will go up or down. It just strikes me as an incredible dissonance at a time of such tension, and yet this dissonance has happened in the past, and certainly there are reasons for it. John Authors, Bloomberg opinion columnist and senior markets editor, who wrote this column, Markets Are Again Proving Immune to Violence. I should add, for now, but you know what? Honestly, they are shrugging off every tension. Right now, let's head down to our 1991 studios in Washington, D.C. Nathan Hager there with world and national headlines. Nathan.
We've seen evidence of that tension, Lisa, from New York to Los Angeles and in dozens of cities across the country. Anger over the police custody death of George Floyd appears to be beyond the breaking point. In Chicago, this man says a protest that began peacefully turned violent when officers started pepper spraying the crowd.
They take joy in it. They finally got the chance to pepper spray people, beat people, except this time they got a wide array of us to do it for. They take joy in it. They don't care about how we feel. They spray me directly in the eye.
The police chief in Louisville, Kentucky says officers and National Guard troops returned fire on a crowd that shot at them overnight, killing one person. Authorities had been called to enforce that city's curfew. It's unclear whether the person who was killed is the one who opened fire. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear says he has authorized an independent state police investigation. Several city leaders have blamed outside groups for stoking the protests. The White House is pointing at one in particular.
This is being driven by Antifa, and they did it in Seattle, they've done it in Portland, they've done it in Berkeley. This is a destructive force of radical, I don't even know if we want to call them leftists, whatever they are, they're militants who are coming in and burning our cities, and we're going to get to the bottom of it.
White House National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien spoke on ABC's This Week, heard on Bloomberg Radio. President Trump reiterated that message on Twitter this morning, quoting a Fox News host who said there is no indication of white supremacist groups mixing in. The president commented, true. The Supreme Court has upheld the Oversight Board tasked with resolving Puerto Rico's debt crisis. In a unanimous decision, justices rejected a constitutional challenge from bondholders who argued the board members should be Senate confirmed. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is Bloomberg.
Imagine being denied an apartment because of your religion or your race, or because you have children or a disability.
It's so wrong. Yes, but who has the power to stop this?
You do. Each of us has the power. The law is on your side. It's illegal for landlords to discriminate because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. If you suspect that you have experienced housing discrimination, file a complaint with HUD immediately so we can investigate it. Fair housing is your right.
Use it.
To learn more, visit HUD.gov/fairhousing. That's HUD.gov/fairhousing. Or call 1-800-669-9777. 1-800-669-9777. A public service message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing for a highly personalized experience? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's fast-paced environment, where the only constants are change and volatility, you need a prime broker who's both steady and agile, focused on supporting your needs so that you can focus on growing your business and producing results. Exceptional client service and advocating for our clients is at the core of what we do. Our award-winning high-touch team is just one of the benefits of working with BNY Mellon. We help alternative investment managers create great experiences for their clients. Whether it's customized financing, securities lending solutions, platform access, or outsourced trading, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and dedicated to meeting your evolving demands.
To learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers, visit Pershing.com. Pershing LLC. Member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
Get your cook on with Asda. With Uncle Ben's rice, 250 grams for just £1. And our Butcher's Selection chicken breast fillets, only £3.40 for 650 grams. Why not whack it in the wok? At Asda, we're committed to low prices every day on the quality products you need. Asda. Selected stores and lines subject to availability.
I've used my ample time indoors to hunt down my odd socks. I found one down the sofa, one in the bread bin, and one in a serious relationship with my cat. But there are better ways to spend your time. That's why Money Supermarket is helping you find cheaper insurance, better interest rates, and easier ways to manage your bills. You can find many more small steps towards money car at Money Supermarket.
Stay on top of everything happening in the pro wrestling universe with the Body Slamming podcasts on TuneIn. For passionate recaps of the most recent SmackDown to a pro wrestler's perspective on life and culture at large, search sports and scroll down to the world of wrestling to listen. Be part of the college sports conversation on TuneIn. Hear the latest storylines around SEC football with the Paul Feinbaum Show.
I distinctly remember when you were hired, and I must say most of us thought you were out of your mind. Giving up, I wouldn't call it a cush job because you were traveling across the country.
Get your college hoops fix with college basketball talk on NBC Sports.
Headed by Shabazz Napier, that also included Amita Brima, who is in and around the NBA ranks right now, and DeAndre Daniels, who was the 37th pick in the 2014 NBA draft. So my question to you is,
or listen to the daily news from around the wide world of college football with College Football Live.
I would go with Utah. I think Utah is the better team. And I know I'm talking to an Oklahoma guy, but listen, and it may be recency bias having watched Utah last week and doing that game, but I just think they're a more complete football.
Discover these and more college sports podcasts right here on TuneIn.
Trey Wingo here from ESPN's Golic and Wingo. Every morning, Mike Golic Jr. and I sit down to discuss all the news, drama, and highlights spinning the sports world that day. And with TuneIn, you can hear us whenever and wherever you go. Just search Golic and Wingo and start listening today.
Hit the court anytime with these great NBA podcasts on TuneIn. The Low Post.
So what struck you about this potential head-to-head matchup? What did we learn now that Zion is involved and LeBron and Zion go at each other for the first time?
You know, I still think both teams have to figure out kind of who are their guys when they get into a fourth quarter. I think you saw that with both of them. There were some kind of odd moments.
The Ringer NBA Show.
Who ended up winning the thing. But I did watch for a little bit when it was DeAndre Ayton and Zach LaVine playing against each other. And then as the days went on, Devin Booker was involved. Tell me you've seen the clip of Devin Booker when I can't remember who his opponent was.
Or the Haber Show.
At the end, it's because I worked in the NBA in the front office, and when I was 14 years old, my family moved back from Sudan to America. I jumped high school here in New York
Find these
City.
and more NBA podcasts right here on TuneIn.
Okay, here we go.
With the NFL draft in the books and the schedule set, check out a TuneIn podcast for daily updates on the lead up to the 2020 season, like the Ringer NFL Show, where a rotating cast of Ringer experts talk with players, coaches, and special guests about the NFL landscape.
A lot of the other teams that we consider...
Or ESPN's NFL Live.
If there are some delays because of the COVID-19...
Search sports on TuneIn to explore these pods and much more.
24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Stocks edge higher starting the new month rather quietly for all the news that's coming in. This has U.S.-China tensions ramped up, and shares in some retailers that had locations affected by violent protests over the weekend faltered. Equities globally are mostly stronger after data from China showed the country's factory activity remained in expansion territory for a second month in the month of May. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day. S&P 500 is up 0.2%, up 5. Dow's up 0.25%, up 66. And the Nasdaq's up 0.3%, up 33. The 10-year is down 9/32 with a yield of 0.68%. West Texas Intermediate crude's down 1.9% at $34.80 a barrel, with COMEX gold down 0.3% at $17.4570 an ounce. The dollar yen 107.59. The euro $1.1127, and the British pound $1.24. 71. The supervisory board of Deutsche Lufthansa has approved Germany's €9 billion bailout proposal, paving the way for the airline to receive the lifeline should shareholders accept the deal. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
You're listening to Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Mayor Bill de Blasio, as well as Governor Cuomo of New York and President Trump alike, all pointed to extremist elements that infiltrated a number of the protests around the country as instigating much of the violence. It went so far as President Trump recommending that Antifa, one of the groups that has been pinpointed, be designated a terrorist organization. Joining us now to discuss this as well as next steps when it comes to the social unrest that we're seeing across the nation is Clint Watts, a distinguished research fellow at the Foreign Policy Research Institute, also senior fellow at the Center for Cyber and Homeland Security at George Washington University, and a former FBI agent in the counterterrorism units. Clint, so glad to be able to speak with you today. What do you make of these allegations that there were rogue anarchist factions that infiltrated the protests? Does that seem to hold truth to you based on what you know?
Yeah, thanks for having me. It creates this very fuzzy and convenient narrative, I think, for a lot of leaders to just blame outsiders or extremists without getting into any specifics, and that can get really dangerous. It's not unheard of for any protest movement to have, regardless of the political orientation, some sort of extremist element within it that's conducting violence or trying to mobilize people to violence. And we've seen this over many decades. But the way it's been kind of carte blanche labeled as extremists or people from not here becoming the agitators really overplays, I think, to a degree that a lot of this is a protest movement, that is based on something that we've seen over many years. And that, yeah, sure, there are going to be people mobilizing towards violence, but I don't know what that group is. And so Antifa gets thrown in as a sort of label. But having worked on this for a good while now and searching out information on Antifa, it is not the organized terrorist or extremist organization the way we tend to think of other groups in the past. And there's no real leader or specific organization. It's really just a collective name thrown onto a movement. So if you're law enforcement and you're trying to deal with this, I don't think it really helps anything. And it's also not an official organization of any real substantial size.
Clint, how much staying power do you think some of these protests have? We've seen this in the past, unfortunately, when other African American men have been subjected to police brutality or other issues along those lines. We've seen this in the past. How much staying power do you think this particular movement has?
I think in this case, there are a lot of other drivers that are keeping it going that we haven't seen before. One, a lot of people are out of work and have been for quite some time. And hostilities and political partisanship have really divided the country over the last 2 to 3 months. I think the second thing is you got extreme economic inequality right now. You have markets at a very high level at a time when unemployment is at an all-time high, at least in my lifetime. And then you add on to that, it's an election year. You've got a powder keg like I've not seen in any time since I've been born, which will potentially power these movements. You've also seen a very militarized and aggressive response to the protest in certain cities. You've seen journalists being targeted or attacked potentially. And you've seen this also take off in social media at a time when our foreign adversaries are trying to amplify and show discord inside the United States, and there's plenty of available content to do that. So I think this could go on for quite some time, just looking at how many factors are compounding at the same time.
So what could actually be done to stop it?
Well, usually the solution for this is cool heads and leadership, and sadly we're not at a point in our country right now where that's coming to fold. You're seeing politicians calling for use of extreme force on protesters, not sort of let's have some calm and come together. On several occasions yesterday, you did see law enforcement leaders, sheriffs, police chiefs trying to walk with the protesters, trying to demobilize. You've also seen protesters turning on the more extremist elements who are, doing property damage or trying to incite violence. And so you're seeing some pushback that gets less coverage in the news and gets less social media shares, but it is out there. So what I'm hoping is that the political leaders won't use this divisiveness for their own political gain and realize that we're really at a turning point in the country where there's such distrust between law enforcement and the public, between institutions, the elected leaders, and the public, that we're really at a dangerous point where my biggest concern right now is, it's been 20 plus years since we had Oklahoma City bombing, but the conditions for this from many different directions are very high right now in terms of the outbreak of large swaths of violence or very specific attacks on institutions, officials, law enforcement, or the public. So I'm worried right now in ways I've never been worried before.
Clint, I got to say, I think we all are worried. And I will just say, Paul, in full disclosure, there was a pretty serious altercation outside my apartment building that I was watching. And there were just as many individuals on the protest side who were carrying away fellow protesters to de-escalate the situation. And you saw police officers also showing restraint. I mean, there were a lot of responsible actors too. And I think that it is true, Paul, that we often do not cover that as much because it's not the thing that stands out from the whole scenario, but definitely is something that exists.
Yeah. Clint, just one final thing here. I mean, much like the pandemic, the response to the pandemic, we're not seeing much leadership at the federal level here as it relates to these civil issues. It's kind of left to governors and really to the mayors, the frontline mayors. Is that problematic in and of itself?
I think it is at this point because these are cities, towns, mayors, governors that have been under intense stress for 3 months, and their resources have already been absolutely, plundered responding to COVID-19. And so if you look at New York City, this is 3 straight months of intense stress on the public system. Law enforcement and emergency responders are fighting a twin battle. You got the pandemic on one side, and you've got this sort of protest movements and spikes of violence on the other, and they're exhausted and worn out. And you look at healthcare workers, they've been fighting a battle for the country over the last 3 months. If you look at law enforcement, first responders, they've been tied up in this. And so I think nerves are frayed and tensions are going to remain high because we've asked a lot of these public servants. And at the same point, the public needs our help. And you can see that with the protests that are out there. We've had a serious problem about African Americans dying, over many years, and it's really come to a head, I think, at this point.
Yeah, I think you're right. Clint Watts, thank you so much for joining us. Clint Watts is a distinguished research fellow for the Foreign Policy Research Institute, also senior fellow at the Center for Cyber and Homeland Security at George Washington University. He's also the author of the book Messing with the Enemy, giving us some much-needed perspective on this rising civil unrest that has once again gripped this country and sweeping across the country. And we'll keep up to date on that news. This is Bloomberg.
Ready for a one-of-a-kind look at the NFL? On the PFF NFL podcast, Steve Palazzolo and Sam Munson interpret the unique stats of Pro Football Focus to analyze the league, uncover secret superstars, and discuss which teams to watch out for in the next Super Bowl.
Let's talk some football. Let's do it, Steve. All sorts of stuff. We're going to do most improved defenses around the NFL. Solomon Wilcots, our very own. He went into some detail over at PFF.com. Most improved defenses around the NFL.
Search PFF NFL on TuneIn to listen.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
With the NHL season temporarily on ice, now is a good time to catch up on past games.
Bergeron, he scores!
With game replay on TuneIn, you can listen to every power play, slap shot, and goal of the 2019-2020 season so far.
Suter to Cunningham to Fiala, he scores!
And for a limited time, it's free for hockey fans everywhere. Search Classic Game Replays to start listening.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Did you know that with TuneIn's local radio feature, you can stream live FM and AM stations broadcasting in your area? Discover local news, talk, and music stations. Navigate to the local radio section under Browse to listen locally on TuneIn.
Be part of the college sports conversation on TuneIn. Hear the latest storylines around SEC football with the Paul Feinbaum Show.
I distinctly remember when you were hired, and I must say most of us thought you were out of your mind, giving up. I wouldn't call it a cush job because you were traveling across the
country. Get your college hoops fix with college basketball talk on NBC Sports.
Headed by Shabazz Napier. That also included Amita Brima, who is in and around the NBA ranks right now, and DeAndre Daniels, who was the 37th pick in the 2014 NBA draft. So my question to you is...
Or listen to the daily news from around the wide world of college football with College Football Live.
I would go with Utah. I think Utah is the better team. And I know I'm talking to an Oklahoma guy, but listen, and it may be recency bias having watched Utah last week and doing that game, but I just think they're a more complete football.
Discover these and more college sports podcasts right here on TuneIn.
At Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney.
Will technology lead us out of this crisis?
The worst jobs market, potentially in history.
The Fed seems to have really flexed its muscles.
How quickly can we recover from this?
Breaking market news and insight from Bloomberg experts.
To wring out that buy-the-dip mentality, that takes time. Are we looking at a more damaging break in the labor market? Does the shape of the yield curve matter? We're looking at late 2021, early 2022. Where it really feels quote-unquote normal.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Coming up over the next hour, we'll dig into the latest manufacturing data from the United States to figure out how quickly the U.S. is getting back online. Plus, a look at the rally that we see in equities, a transition into some of the weaker sectors as people gird in for a longer recovery. Right now, let's head over to Greg Jarrett for a Bloomberg Business Flash. Greg.
Lisa, stocks are edging just a bit higher as investors focus on signs of economic recovery amid further tension with China, lackluster virus drug test results, and the threat of further civil unrest. Treasury yields are edging higher, and the dollar is slumping. We take the look at the numbers every 15 minutes. The S&P 500 is up 0.25%, up 7. The Dow is also up 0.25%, up 60. And the NASDAQ is up 0.5%, up 44. The 10-year is down 8/30 seconds with a yield of 0.68%. West Texas Intermediate crude oil is down 2.4% at $34.64 a barrel, while COMEX gold is a little changed right now at $17.50.30 an ounce. The dollar yen, 107.55. The euro, $1.11.38. And the British pound, $1.24.86. OPEC Plus is considering meeting this week, just a few days earlier than planned, to discuss a short extension of its current production cuts. The group could decide later today whether to bring forward their next virtual meeting to Thursday. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Bloomberg Markets continues now with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney.
Greg Jarrett, thank you so much. We appreciate that. As Greg was just reporting, just a slight uptick in the market today. That's kind of impressive when you think about all the news that the market had to digest over the weekend. Let's get a sense of where the action is with small and mid-cap stocks. To do that, we welcome Bloomberg Stocks editor Dave Wilson. Dave, what are you looking at this morning?
Well, the gains there are more than slight at the moment, Paul. The Russell 2000 index is up 1.2%. and the S&P 500 is only up 0.2%. So smaller companies, bigger gains. You're seeing a number of stocks related to police and guns higher after the weekend of protests tied to George Floyd's death in Minneapolis. One of them, Wrap Technologies, the ticker there is WRTC. This company supplies devices used by police to restrain people remotely, and it's up 15%. Also up 15%, Axon Enterprises, ticker AAXN. This company makes police body cameras. Then you look at the gun stocks. They're higher. The newly renamed Smith & Wesson Brands, ticker SWBI, is up almost 17%. They had been American Outdoor Brands. They're selling off their outdoor business. Sturm Ruger, ticker RGR, is up about 11%. And gunfire detection company ShotSpotter, ticker SSTI, is up 13%. Drive Shack, ticker DS, moving to a different area, up 10.5%. The owner of golf-based entertainment centers received a buy rating and new coverage at B. Riley FBR. Now, the biggest drop in the Russell belongs to Evolent Health, ticker EVH. The healthcare software maker is down 27.5% after a partner failed in an attempt to regain a Medicaid contract in Kentucky.
All right, Dave Wilson, Bloomberg Stocks editor, thank you for that update. We are starting to see some green shoots in the economic data coming out. The latest U.S. manufacturing data rising in May for the first time in 4 months, still at a very low level. But to dig into exactly how potentially optimistic this is, we bring in Timothy Fiore, chair of the Manufacturing Business Survey for the Institute for Supply Management down in Miami, Florida. Tim, I just want to start with how great these green shoots are. How much momentum is there behind the slight gain that we saw in the ISM figures?
Well, good morning, Lisa. So there are a lot of pluses from April in the month of May, and there's a lot going on. And I would classify this as really a transition month because there's a lot happening at the end of May that may not be fully reflected in these numbers. But overall, on the demand side, weak new order levels. Weak new export orders, although both are better than the prior month, they're still pretty weak. The customer inventory count is getting to a too low level, which is normally good, but I have some concern that it's really cash preservation kind of issues. And the backlog has been stubbornly stuck at about 38 for several months now, and I've got concern about that. But on the positive side here, on the consumption side, we've got factories returning back to work. We've got people reporting back to work. I would expect that in the month of June, our production and employment numbers will be quite a bit better than what you see in this month. They are going to have to deal with limited shop floor spacing, and they still have to deal with supply chain constraints that are continuing as suppliers come off of furloughs and bring people back. And the biggest question, I think, really for Q2, Q3 is what's the true ramp-up rate that companies will be able to achieve given the problems in the supply chain as well as the shop floor constraints.
So, Tim, I know we've heard some news out of the auto manufacturers that they're starting to kind of ramp up production. How much, if any, did that impact these May results, and what's the impact you think kind of looking forward in the next several months?
Well, they ripple through all the different industry sectors in the manufacturing sector. And yes, they did start to come back somewhere around the 18th of May. They came back at 25-30%. I think they're confident that they'll get to something higher. I'm seeing through the panel comments that in many cases are talking about 3 shifts to try to get the same output out of the same factories. Things seem to be positive there, and there seems to be a feel that the automotive demand is going to be stronger than what people thought a month ago. But, I think overall consumer confidence, people returning to work is a really positive thing. They're all testing out new manufacturing protocols concerning social distancing, and there are theories about whether they can double production in 4 weeks or not will be proven in the month of June. And as I said, consumer confidence should improve along with that and maybe drive more demand. Because at this point, my biggest concern really is on the demand side with new order levels relatively low at 32. That's very low. New export orders probably aren't going to recover much better because of the European situation and backlog being very weak.
Yeah. Well, Tim, I guess there's also a question about the growing U.S.-China trade tensions and an increasing emphasis on bringing supply chains back to the United States. I'm wondering whether your survey picks up any activity on that front.
Yes, we've been watching that now for about a year and a half. And I think after the escalation in the tariff arguments about a year and a half ago, people started to put plans in place. And I think that was a positive thing, especially when the virus hit and the inability to get product out of China became clear. I don't think China is fully recovered yet in terms of imports. You can see our import numbers still very low at 41.3. It's been generally flat for about 4 months, and you would have thought it would have came back by now, but it hasn't. Tariff issues were not really pointed out at all in our survey. No one thought that those were severe issues today. But as we go into June and July, we'll see that the level of discussions has definitely ratcheted up. I think you'll see some comments in the report that reflect the fact that people are still looking to maybe at least dual source out of China. I don't think anybody is thinking that they should single source out of China anymore. And, the onshoring and the nearshoring activity, I think, is becoming more and more prevalent. But it started a year and a half ago, and I don't see it diminishing at this point.
Tim Fiore, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Tim Fiore is the chairman of the Manufacturing Business Survey at the Institute for Supply Management based in Miami, Florida. So, Lisa, I think if you look at these ISM numbers today, I think you can get a sense here. I guess it's the fourth week of seeing improvement, and they're still, weak numbers, as Tim was just saying, but we're seeing 4 weeks of steady improvement. So maybe setting in a bottom, if you will, for U.S. manufacturing.
Yeah, and trying to interpret it is going to be tough. And I think that that's been the issue all along. These high-frequency data points are important in collective to try to get a picture, but each specific one is pretty messy given the scenario that we're dealing with. And is it just less bad, or is it actually an improvement that's going to have steady legs? I really think that what Tim said on the demand side is pivotal. And I also wonder about demand in things like plexiglass and masks and all of the equipment necessary to bring people back to work safely.
Yeah, interesting. And of course, as it relates to economic data, we'll be looking at that jobs data on Friday. That will be just a stellar, unfortunately, to the downside in terms of an unemployment rate, seeing a rate that we have not seen really since the Great Depression. So that's coming up on Friday. So another economic data point. But again, a lot of the data points taken in collective, as Lisa said, suggesting that this economy may have bottomed and it's looking to turn up. Right now, let's head down to our Washington, D.C. studios for World and National Headlines with Nathan Hager. Nathan, what do you have?
Well, Paul, the U.S. is heading into this new month, a new work week, with neighborhoods in shambles, cities enforcing curfews, and local leaders struggling to quell the anger over killings of Black Americans in police custody. Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms.
My fear is that the message and the need for change will get lost in the destruction. And it is difficult when you have officers on the street who are human and they are fatigued and they are stressed.
And 2 Atlanta police officers were fired yesterday after video showed them breaking the windows of a vehicle with 2 people inside. Atlanta's police chief says she recognized the 2 as students from historically Black colleges. The protesters stoking concern that they could spark a new wave of coronavirus infection. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot.
This disease is still ravaging our Black and brown communities. And our public health officials are gravely concerned that yesterday's action could turn out to be a super spreader event.
Now, the White House and President Trump have blamed the loosely organized leftist group Antifa for violence in the protests. Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison is responding to that.
I have not seen any evidence like that. I don't regard that as a helpful comment. I think we need to investigate these suspicious characters who have been seen breaking property, and committing acts of arson.
President Trump meets today with Attorney General William Barr. He'll also have a video conference with governors and law enforcement. Joe Biden met today with community leaders at a predominantly Black church in his hometown of Wilmington, Delaware. The second straight day he's left his house. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries.
What began in China has expanded worldwide.
Is it China that's going to lead that consumer recovery?
What have we learned?
I'm curious as to what you're monitoring most closely in the news flow.
What can we predict?
Are you seeing a time when you can expect recovery in global travel?
Bloomberg Daybreak Asia.
Do people realize that those numbers are going to get a lot worse?
Tonight at 6 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
Jelly. Jelly adjective. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous, as in
Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
How long? How much? How many? Financial, policy, and medical experts are working on answers 24/7.
What about public debt?
We are listening to those experts 24/7.
Is the Fed effectively widening this wealth gap with its programs?
Because you want answers too.
What's the most important, the trillions in stimulus, the economy's reopening, or the infections curve bending?
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Hi, we're the Goo Goo Dolls. We're fortunate that our daughters have what they need to grow and learn. But that isn't the case for nearly 13 million kids in the U.S. that struggle with hunger.
Childhood hunger is a heartbreaking reality that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and provides it to families and children in need.
You can help kids in need in your community by visiting feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Are you interested?
If you can build that flat-pack wardrobe without looking at the instructions, you've still got it. If you can manage 5 keepy uppies on your first go, you've without question still got it. If you can toss a pancake to the ceiling and not let it hit the floor, surely you've still got it. And if you can just about fit into those jeans you bought 5 years ago, you've definitely still got it. Brute. Still got it.
This is a message from the government about the emergency measures to support the economy during the period of disruption caused by the coronavirus. To help you, your business, and your workers affected, you can apply for cash grants, business rate holidays, statutory sick pay relief packages, as well as the coronavirus job retention and self-employment income support schemes. For information, go to gov.uk/business-support now.
Where will 2020 take you? Somewhere where people care about each other, about our planet, about creating a better world for everyone, and becoming the best versions of yourselves. Join a community of like-minded individuals at the University of Winchester. Make sure to accept your offer by the UCAS deadline and visit our website to find out more. See the bigger picture. Be the difference. Go to winchester.ac.uk.
Thanks to National Lottery players, the Emerald Centre are now providing emergency food supplies and support for people in Bedfordshire like Alan. Thank you. And £600 million of National Lottery funding is on its way to thousands more local projects in England and across the UK during these exceptional times.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen.
At Asda, we're helping you shop safely by keeping our stores clean and limiting customer numbers so you can keep 2 meters apart. With our Scan and Go mobile app, you can reduce contact at the till too. Asda, we're all in this together. Subject to availability, mobile data charges may apply.
We're all in uncharted territory looking for ways to support our communities. At Dell Technologies, we're making sure small businesses have the right tech solutions. Dell Technologies advisors are here for you, helping small businesses stay connected and productive while working remotely with Windows 10 Pro and Microsoft Teams. We're standing by you every step of the way. Call us today on 0800 169 1745. That's 0800 169 1745.
Ready for some straight talk on what's happening in the MLB? On the Barstool Sports Podcast starting 9, Dallas Brayton and Jared Carrabis cut through the BS to break down the league the way they really see it.
Yeah, we're continuing our little mini-series of college baseball coaches in addition to bringing you major league players from throughout the league. If you've been listening to Starting 9 for some time now, you know that we've had a big leaguer on every single episode for probably 2 years now.
Search Starting 9 on TuneIn to listen.
How do you keep track of all your favorite stations and podcasts? Easy. You add them to your favorites list. Just find the audio you want to bookmark and tap the heart icon. Then, whenever you want to browse your favorites, you'll find everything under the Favorites tab.
Ready for a one-of-a-kind look at the NFL? On the PFF NFL podcast, Steve Palazzolo and Sam Munson interpret the unique stats of Pro Football Focus to analyze the league, uncover secret superstars, and discuss which teams to watch out for in the next Super Bowl.
Let's talk some football. Let's do it, Steve. All sorts of stuff. We're going to do most improved defenses around the NFL. Solomon Wilcots, our very own. He went into some detail over at PFF.com. Most improved defenses around the
Search PFF NFL on TuneIn to listen.
Headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Stocks edged just a bit higher as investors focus on signs of economic recovery amid further tension with China, lackluster virus drug test results, and the threat of further civil unrest in the USA. Treasury yields are higher and the dollar is down. We look at the numbers every 15 minutes. S&P 500 is a little changed up 2. The Dow is a little changed up 16. And the NASDAQ is up 0.3%, up 27. The 10-year is currently down 9/32 with a yield of 0.68%. West Texas Intermediate crude is down 2.7% at $34.55 a barrel, with COMEX gold down 0.1% at $17.49.90 an ounce. The dollar yen, 107.63. The euro, $1.11.22. And the British pound, $1.24.65. Colombia is joining Latin American peers, including Chile and Peru, in tapping international markets as it ratchets up spending to offset the economic toll of coronavirus. A source says the nation is offering a dollar-denominated debt due in 2031 to yield about 300 basis points among similar rated treasuries, and debt maturing in 2051 to yield around 330 basis points above. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
We don't talk enough about REITs, but that has certainly been an area where investors have consistently looked for dividend returns, yield returns. To get a sense of what's going on in that market, given all the uncertainty we are seeing across asset classes, we're welcome to have Iman Brevenlu, lead portfolio manager of high income equities and global REITs at TCW. TCW, as you may know, is a huge firm out on the West Coast, $212 billion in assets firm-wide. Amen. Thanks so much for joining us here. Give us a sense of how REITs as a group have performed over the last several months when we've seen just unprecedented volatility.
Sure. Well, thank you very much for having me. As you said, the sector has been extremely volatile. The sector as a whole is down about 20% year to date, lagging the S&P by about 15%. So it's definitely underperformed by a very meaningful amount.
Well, let's talk about the bifurcation within the REIT segment. We have, for example, commercial real estate in major cities under pressure as people work from home, and amid a host of other issues raising questions about the centers of cities. And then you have more suburban areas. Where do you see the value right now?
Well, that's a great question, and thank you for asking that. Bifurcation is definitely correct. People think of REITs and real estate perhaps as a uniform group, and they're anything but. So within the space, data centers and towers have actually outperformed very meaningfully. They're up about 20%. While, as you would imagine, those sectors that are closer to the epicenter of the pandemic, things like regional malls or hotels, down 50%, 45% year to date. Our viewpoint is that the pandemic has really accelerated certain secular trends that were in the midst of being played out. And, we envision that the same dynamics are going to essentially prevail over the at least medium to long term here. We continue to see the towers, the data centers, the industrial space as benefiting from substantial tailwinds, while, retail, really in all forms, being really challenged.
So let's talk about office space. This pandemic has changed the way many work, a lot more working from home here. How are you thinking about the office space? Is that a net winner or a net loser as we come out of this pandemic, do you think?
Yeah, so that's a big question out there in the sector. My personal belief is that there are going to be net losers. I think by and large, the success of work from home models has really surprised people. I envision that, going forward, that there's going to be less demand for CBD, central business district office space, and I think that's going to really put pressure on pricing and rents for those landlords.
What about multifamily homes, apartment buildings?
So similarly, Lisa, I think the demand there from a secular standpoint is likely to be strong, but I believe that the central business district versus periphery mix might be impacted. The protests, of course, on TV, pretty graphic videos being shared. The first order effects are pretty clear, with regard to retail and the damage that's going to cause there. Increased concessions on behalf of tenants from landlords. I think the secondary impact there is going to be, certainly if the protests persist, perhaps a tilting of the premium, central business district over periphery. That premium may not be as pronounced on a go-forward basis.
So how about some of we've heard stories and about businesses not being able to pay their rent, and ultimately, as we head into the third month, ultimately that impacts some REITs. Where are you seeing signs of stress in the market right now?
Wow, yeah. So it's really all over, except for those areas that do benefit from work from home models. So except for towers, data centers, and industrials. Industrials, you can think of these as warehouses. Owners to things like Amazon distribution centers, right, and so forth. It's really been everywhere, Paul. So the office space, is in the midst of being redefined. The retail is, as we mentioned, is in the epicenter. Hotels and lodging, for sure. All leisure activities essentially ceased. So I think these are questions that are going to be answered over kind of a near to medium term time frame. How much demand destruction is there? As economies reopen, how much of that is going to come back? What will concessions look like? Tenants are sure to ask for tenant improvements. So all of those dynamics are in the midst of being played out. But I think over the long term, we're going to revert back to those long-term secular drivers that have really driven the space. Things like big data and mobility. These are big trends impacting the broader markets. E-commerce, also certain nascent themes such as artificial intelligence, autonomous driving technology. Those are really the things that I think over a long term have the potential to shape the dynamics within real estate.
We have to get you back on. A lot more to talk about, including low interest rates and how that may also affect the picture in demand for a variety of different real estate. Iman Brivenlou, thank you so much for being with us, lead portfolio manager of TCW High Income Equities and TCW Global REITs. Definitely a multifaceted area, the real estate investment trust area, as not all real estate is even. I will say it has been notably positive outside of cities in terms of demand for housing, in terms of people not wanting to sell their homes and a lot of people wanting to buy them. It'll be interesting to see whether that continues as the downturn makes its way forward. A lot of unknowns right now, Paul.
Yeah, a lot of people fleeing cities, Lisa, going for the suburbs, whether it's short-term rentals or long-term buys. A little bit of demand there coming out of the pandemic.
Yeah, although we've seen this movie before. Yeah. Don't count New York City or all the big cities out just yet. From New York, this is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Stocks are a little changed to kick off the new trading month. Cities reeling as violence erupts across the nation. The chaos striking as the economy struggles to emerge from its coronavirus-enforced hibernation. There could be a change in perceptions of the first therapy cleared for use in severe cases of the coronavirus. Gilead's drug, remdesivir, showed only a limited benefit in a large trial. Last month, the drug maker released data that led to remdesivir being authorized for emergency use. There has been an unprecedented strain on customer support workers. Pandemic critical sectors such as grocery delivery are experiencing triple-digit percentage spikes in customer support tickets, according to software provider Zendesk. And bars and restaurants are slowly reopening, but many Americans are content to keep drinking on their couch. Liquor delivery service Drizzly said sales are still about 400% above historical levels. Courtney Donahoe, Bloomberg Radio.
Buy your home, you became a house hunting ace, learned about loans, scoured neighborhoods, and asked the right questions. Now you're queen of your castle. If you manage that, you can get your retirement plan on track. Visiting aceyourretirement.org can help. With 401k tips and smart saving strategies, you'll feel empowered to own your retirement like you own your home. Go to aceyourretirement.org. Because when it comes to clearing financial hurdles, you're an ace. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Bloomberg and Eaton Vance are proud to present a Boston Top Salute to our heroes. This Independence Day, the orchestra's 4th of July tradition continues. The program will feature guest artists, highlights from past fireworks displays, new music paying tribute to the heroes of the current health crisis, and honoring the memories of those we have lost. Watch and listen Saturday, July 4th, starting at 8 Eastern, exclusively on Bloomberg Television and right here on Bloomberg Radio. You're living in a world.
With the shift to remote working, video conferencing has become the new normal to keep your business running. But is it reliable and secure? Cisco WebEx is committed to the highest security standards and already trusted by both small businesses and many of the world's largest organizations. Call, message and meet securely with Cisco WebEx. Sign up at cisco.uk/work-from-home. When secure remote work is critical, WebEx is essential.
Emma, the UK's most awarded mattress in 2019. Try it out for 200 nights risk-free. Made in the UK. Go to emmamattress.co.uk to order now.
Where will 2020 take you? Somewhere where people care. About each other. About our planet. About creating a better world for everyone. And becoming the best versions of yourselves. Join a community of like-minded individuals at the University of Winchester. Make sure to accept your offer by the UCAS deadline and visit our website to find out more. See the bigger picture. Be the difference. Go to winchester.ac.uk.
Picture this. Small businesses on eBay are working to
get things moving.
Sending spices to novice cooks.
Hairbands to kids.
Desks for home offices.
Delivering the goods.
Shipping footballs.
Fruit trees.
And dishwashers.
Thousands of small businesses on eBay are helping to keep the nation going. They are individually brilliant, stronger as one. Buy, sell, eBay.
This is a message from the government about the emergency measures to support the economy during the period of disruption caused by the coronavirus. To help you, your business, and your workers affected, you can apply for cash grants, business rate holidays, statutory sick pay relief packages, as well as the coronavirus job retention and self-employment income support schemes. For information, go to gov.uk/business-support now.
At Asda, we're helping you shop safely by keeping our stores clean and limiting customer numbers so you can keep 2 meters apart. With our Scan and Go mobile app, you can reduce contact at the till too. Asda, we're all in this together. Subject to availability, mobile data charges may apply.
We're all in uncharted territory looking for ways to support our communities. At Dell Technologies, we're making sure small businesses have the right tech solutions. Dell Technologies advisors are here for you, helping small businesses stay connected and productive while working remotely with Windows 10 Pro and Microsoft Teams. We're standing by you every step of the way. Call us today on 0800 169 1745. That's 0800 169 1745.
Who says you can't have a laugh while getting serious about America's pastime? On the daily podcast Locked On MLB, comedian and baseball fanatic Paul Francis Sullivan talks about each team, each pennant race, and everything else in the game, from rule changes and controversies to baseball cards and stadium food.
For those of you who are not familiar with me or the old show, I love to obsess over baseball. I'm talking baseball over the Super Bowl. We had a TV showing the division series during my wedding.
Search Locked On MLB on TuneIn to listen today.
Be part of the sports conversation with Sports Talk Radio on TuneIn. Join the discussion around your favorite local teams with sports stations broadcasting in your area.
The game will be 185 to 183 and somebody wins, whatever. Football, it's either full go or it's not. You got like, oh, it's thud. I can practice what they call
Follow
thud.
national storylines and debates with ESPN Radio.
NBA have a hiring problem when it comes to front office jobs in the leagues and a minority hiring issue. Stephen A. chimed in on that today on First Take.
It also resonates with me. Max, you can appreciate this position. One of the candidates was Brian Colangelo. We know what happened. I like Brian, but we know...
And hear what's happening worldwide with international channels like Talk Sport.
Seems as I'm sort of doing my life in reverse at the moment. I was on cricket tours when I was 20 years old, and now I'm 31. I'm sat at home injured playing PlayStation. So it's a tournament basically where you create your own character.
In your backyard and around the globe. Keep your finger on the pulse of the sports world with TuneIn.
From the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York, Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston, Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco, Bloomberg 960 to the country, Sirius XM Channel 119, and around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Markets.
Coming up, we're going to get the latest on the U.S.-China trade deal as China halts some U.S. farm imports. Plus, we're going to chat with Win Thin, Global Head of Currency Strategy at Brown Brothers Harriman, on China and emerging markets. But first, let's go to Greg Jarrett of Bloomberg News for a Bloomberg Business Flash. Greg.
While the S&P is fluctuating with a tech-heavy NASDAQ outperforming, stocks had dipped earlier after Chinese government officials told agriculture companies to pause purchases of some American farm goods, including soybeans, threatening a hard-won trade deal. Gilead Sciences fell after its drug showed only a limited benefit in a large trial. Right now, Gilead is down 4.25%. We check the markets every 15 minutes. Right now, S&P is little changed, up just less than 2. The Dow's little changed, up 14, and the Nasdaq's up 0.3%, up 29. The 10-year's down 7/32 with a yield of 0.67%. West Texas Intermediate crude's down 2.5% at 34.61 a barrel, while COMEX gold's up 0.1% at 17.5340 an ounce. The dollar yen 107.63. The euro $1.11.18, and the British pound $1.24.63. Libby, the U.S. glassware maker, has filed for bankruptcy after the pandemic intensified a burdensome debt load and strained its access to cash. The company filed for Chapter 11 protection from creditors in Delaware. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
You're listening to Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Bloomberg News reporting earlier today that China was halting some U.S. farm imports, threatening the Phase 1 trade deal. Joining us now to discuss is Brendan Murray, Bloomberg Trade Czar. Brendan, can you give us a sense of what we know so far in terms of what China has decided with these purchases?
Well, from what we understand, the Chinese government has told some of its big grain processing companies to hold off on buying any U.S. soybeans for now. And this is a sort of subtle signal. The government doesn't say it publicly itself, but it's one of those signals that Beijing sends to Donald Trump in this case that says, remember, we still have control in terms of buying the soybeans that your farmers want us to buy. So it's a bit of it's a chess move, basically. We'll have to see how Trump responds.
Is there I guess that China is expecting Trump to respond here. How typical or atypical is it for China to kind of make this announcement or let it be known or leak out about these purchases here, as opposed to just kind of winding down purchases more quietly?
It's a pretty standard tactic that we've seen from China in various other situations over the years. That it's not a prominent official who comes out and says it. It just kind of leaks out of one of the state-run companies. So it's not really surprising. We'll have to see if Donald Trump responds. But for the time being, it looks like the phase one trade deal that was signed back in January is holding together. We'll see if that's possible. Over the sort of medium term, over the next few months.
Brendan, the news cycle is moving so fast that we all have whiplash. On Friday, President Trump came out. There was discussion of revoking, and the U.S. did move to revoke Hong Kong's special trading status. He did, however, reserve some judgment, or at least he had language that seemed like there was some room to negotiate in terms of just how hard a stance he was going to take on China. And there was a general feeling that the phase one trade deal was still intact. I'm wondering how much this move by China, as reported by Bloomberg, does to push the scales over into killing the phase one trade deal.
Well, I think the Trump administration will keep an eye on export numbers and see if they do back up this talk with actual action. They are keeping close tabs on the purchase commitments that China made and whether they're following through. Now, the pandemic disrupted a lot of that, but now China's mostly through that. So we'll have to see if China follows through on this threat that it just made. But on the other hand, there isn't much incentive from the Trump side to cancel the deal either. When you cancel the phase one trade deal, what you get are tariffs, and neither side benefits when tariffs come back into place. So you're looking at an agreement that both sides might be just stuck with for the next several months, because there's no real incentive for China to back out, because that'll hurt their economy, or for the U.S. to do so, because that will obviously hurt U.S. importers who would be facing higher tariffs on Chinese imports.
Brendan, in your experience, what's the likelihood of getting a phase two deal?
I would say that the likelihood of a phase two deal, given that it's very difficult to see how phase one is even going to be fulfilled, over the next year or two, I would think you're looking at, not a very high chance of happening, unless we see some things change drastically. In the next 6 months or so. It's most experts who look at this. Phase two is those are the most difficult issues. It gets to the heart of China's, sort of state-controlled economic model. But China's not giving those up anytime soon, I wouldn't put those odds very high.
Brendan, how are things going between the U.S. and Europe with respect to trade? Because for a while, the tension seemed to have moved from U.S.-China to U.S.-Europe. Now we don't talk about that. Why?
Yeah, there's an interesting storyline coming between in the transatlantic relationship as well. The U.S. is trying to negotiate a free trade deal with the U.K., and the U.K. is trying to negotiate, a post-Brexit situation with the EU. So you have this sort of this triangle of trade dynamics playing out. And for the moment, it seems that the U.S.-EU tensions are kind of in the background, while the EU and the UK sort out their Brexit situation. So there's not a whole lot of talk there. We are expecting a ruling from the WTO in the next few weeks that would allow the EU to put tariffs on airplane part and imports as part of this Airbus-Boeing situation. So that could kind of flare up and cause U.S.-EU trade tensions, but other than that, they're kind of dormant at the moment.
Hey, Brendan, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate your thoughts and experience. As always, Brendan Murray covers all things trade for Bloomberg News based in London. So very interesting. Lisa, it's funny how trade, was such a front burner issue, call it 12 months ago, has really been kind of put again to the back burner as the world focuses on pandemic and the economic impact of the pandemic. But as Brendan was suggesting, phase one's having some bumps.
I don't understand how markets shrug off absolutely everything. I mean, it is interesting, and you do wonder, is the Fed and the fiscal stimulus enough to offset anything?
It appears
basically.
It appears that, including the terrible news we experienced over the weekend. But right now, let's head down to our 99.1 studios in Washington D.C. for world and national headlines with Nathan Hager. Nathan, what do you have for us?
Well, Paul, President Trump is doubling down on his hardline reaction to the violence that has erupted in cities across the country over the killings of Black Americans in police custody. The president's been holding a video conference with governors, and the Associated Press reports he told them, quote, "Most of you are weak," end quote, urging them to crack down even harder on the unrest. St. Paul, Minnesota Mayor Melvin Carter tells ABC's Good Morning America the violent reaction to the death of George Floyd in neighboring Minneapolis is posing a distraction.
We should be having a conversation in America that's centered on the fact that George Floyd ought to still be alive, that all four of those officers need to be held accountable.
Now, the president hasn't delivered any public remarks on the unrest. White House spokeswoman Kayleigh McEnany tells Fox News an Oval Office address won't stop Antifa, that is the loosely organized leftist group that the White House has blamed for the violence. A source tells Bloomberg President Trump was taken to a secure area at the White House Friday night as demonstrators got close to the executive mansion and the Secret Service declared condition red. It's unclear whether that was repeated over the weekend. Joe Biden is warning the U.S. is headed for another depression. The presumptive Democratic presidential nominee has been speaking with community leaders at a church in his hometown of Wilmington, Delaware. He's calling on Republicans to approve new aid to states and cities. Biden says the economic recovery from the coronavirus will need to deal with institutional racism. He also says he plans to campaign heavily in Arizona and Georgia. Global news, 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is Bloomberg.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel, crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's BABBEL.com.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology, makes innovation happen. NJIT faculty mentored Christoph Camacho when he was a student, helping him co-found a startup and patent a device that uses drone technology for reforestation and to collect valuable data for land management.
I founded Paratrees back in 2016, taking what I learned from my research at NJIT and migrating it to a startup. Our technology is to really enhance land management operations. So we work very closely with land management companies. So we have a drone that performs precision reforestation, and we do storm damage assessment, having access to drones that can collect data so it's much faster. And what is more important, we help them drive management decisions. NJIT has been there every step of the way, going full force with my company.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
In-depth analysis.
You know that feeling when you get more than you expected? Like discovering that the box of chocolates has a whole other layer underneath? Or scoring extra poppadoms with your takeaway? Or joining Tesco Mobile and finding out you get the latest phones and 99% UK network coverage? Yeah, that moment feels good, right? Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
99% 4G population coverage indoors and outdoors across UK.
Where will 2020 take you? Somewhere where people care. About each other. About our planet. About creating a better world for everyone. And becoming the best versions of yourselves. Join a community of like-minded individuals at the University of Winchester. Make sure to accept your offer by the UCAS deadline and visit our website to find out more. See the bigger picture. Be the difference. Go to winchester.ac.uk.
Picture this. Small businesses on eBay are working to
get things moving.
Sending spices to novice cooks.
Hairbands to kids.
Desks for home offices.
Delivering the goods.
Shipping footballs.
Fruit trees.
And dishwashers.